I'm going to talk now a little bit about how the science of what Bo explained to you of how our brain works, how emotions are a critical part of our behavior impact us in the workplace. Because emotions, you know, as hopefully you've understood from Bo and also potentially experienced, I'm guessing, some point in your career, you know, emotions affect us all the time. There's no such thing as leaving your emotions at the door when you go to work. It's not neurologically possible. And so the way we perceive our emotional experience, how we choose to manage it and express it to others, our understanding of the emotional experience that other people are having, and then using all that information to manage stress and make decisions affect our ability to be effective in the workplace. So I'm going to share with you some results of research that was done by Reuven Barone, who is the psychology scientist whose work underpins the EQI 2.0. And what Reuven Barone found is that emotional intelligence can predict performance when you control for IQ, intelligence, and a certain level of skill. So in a career like account management or strategic account management, most people have to be at a certain level of intellect, cognitive intellect, to even be eligible to be considered for a position like this. Once you become part of the group with that intellect, there's an additional level of skill and knowledge that's required to be offered this kind of a position or promoted into it. We have not met any SAMs who are brand new to their industry or to their company. It's typically a position where people who have some level of knowledge and experience have worked into. So I want to say that first to explain that IQ and experience and skills are still relevant, but once you get into that pool of people who've made it past those thresholds is where emotional intelligence really starts to differentiate people amongst each other. So what Reuven Barone found was in any type of work, about 30% of your performance can be based upon the use of emotional intelligence skills above and beyond workplace skills, hard skills, and knowledge. Okay, and that's for anybody in any position, no matter how relationship-oriented that position is. So even an accountant, about 30% of the work performance would be based on emotional intelligence because that accountant still has to interface with a lot of different people, get them to trust and give information, and also try to influence others when it comes to decision-making. When Reuven Barone looked at people who had been designated as high performers by the organization using its own metrics. So these would be performance reviews, potentially any kind of objective data. Obviously for strategic account managers, it could be a revenue number. The people who did well in terms of their evaluation from the company, when given the EQI 2.0, 90% of them also had higher or elevated scores on many of the EI competencies. And so we saw that correlation independently of any knowledge of emotional intelligence, that the organization was rewarding and recognizing the competence of people who were high in EI already. And then finally, he noticed that, you know, of the careers that would derail unexpectedly, so this is people who have a lot of high potential, maybe they're very smart, very knowledgeable, but for some reason, at some point along the way, they don't reach their potential. And he estimated about 75% of the people who were derailing because of some gap in their use of an emotional intelligence competency. So they may be good at something like empathy, but struggling a lot with their impulse control. And no matter how well somebody understands other people, if they're exploding and screaming at people when they're under stress, eventually that's going to take a toll on their career. And then finally, and I think the data point that's most relevant to everyone on this call is that when you get into a leadership role, about 67% of leadership performance was based upon the use of emotional intelligence competencies. We consider strategic account managers, key account managers, to be people who are leaders whether or not you have a direct report, because the nature of the account management role is such that you're often having to influence many people, both internally and externally, who you don't have authority over. You're charged with leading initiatives, coordinating projects that are of great importance to your employers. Often there are a lot of dollars at stake, and so you are leaders. And the reason that that percentage is so much higher for leaders than it is for individual contributors is because people in leadership roles often have so much interaction with other people and are subjected to conditions that are more stressful than the conditions you may have had as an individual contributor or in a different kind of role. And so hopefully you're getting an idea of the significance of emotional intelligence and why it's relevant for SAM.